Welcome everyone for another episode in the series where we are using charts donated by all of you to explain, explore, and dive into the world of astrology. We have another chart example for you, and we're going to pull that up shortly. So let's get into it. Okay. So compared to our other charts, we are diving off the deep end. We're going with an Aquarius rising. Up until this point, we've had 3 Virgo risings, which has been hilarious, as well as a Capricorn. So it's nice to kind of get a breath of fresh air with the Aquarius rising, which gives us a little bit of a different chart. So how are you, my dear?
I am doing well. I'm at a different part of my life, and I'm looking forward to seeing what I can create in the rest of my life.
Okay, sounds good. Any particular area of life or area of the chart that you're curious about? Any planets or any particular themes that you would like to discuss first before we get into some of the basics?
Health has been an issue that I'm working through. And the other area of my life is my work situation. I love what I do, and I am anxious to get back to it. I miss it very, very much, and I haven't been able to do my practice. And so I'm sure that in some way I'll receive information. They are definitely connected.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So
and also location.
Location, gotcha. Okay, we will talk about that as well. Let's start with the medical aspects, since that's a really fun area to dive into in the chart. So when we look at the chart from a medical perspective, we're looking at 3 houses or 3 different sections of the chart, each representing a different stage of the body breakdown process, which also tells us how we can kind of heal, and we'll discuss different methods of intervention to help align with those various signs. So the ascendant and the signs and planets and everything that's happening in the first house is where we look to first. The first house is the house of the self. So it often dictates kind of primary personality and who you are as a person, but then it also talks to us about the body and the most sensitive body system. This is the body system where all health and wellness issues stem from, and it is also the part of the body that we need to heal first in order to lay the foundation for kind of truer, more lasting lifestyle change and kind of turning around various secondary symptoms. So Aquarius on your ascendant is the sign that rules the peripheral nerves. It rules the calves, and it also rules the skin. So when we talk about peripheral nerves, we're talking about anything that would shoot, burn, or tingle down the extremities. We're also talking about the skin and its various conditions as a huge barometer for your health and wellness. And then also, seems weird, but the calves, which are actually the secondary heart. A lot of people think about the calves in Aquarius and they don't really understand why the calves are so important. But what is interesting medically is that Aquarius opposes Leo, and Leo is the medical sign for the heart. And Aquarius and the calves, and specifically the soleus muscle, is known as the second heart because it pumps circulation back towards the body, often fighting gravity to do so. So it's a really lovely kind of metaphor for, again, peripheral circulation. So that's where we really need to focus on repairing, because Aquarius is a nerve-based sign. Incorporating things that are a little bit more subtle into your health and wellness regimen, like meditation, like changing your diet to reflect a little bit more of the healthy fat component, which coats and protects the nerves, but also making sure that you have your vitamins and minerals checked, especially if those are low, and you're literally starting to short circuit nervous system wise. We just need to make sure that those nerves have what they need in order to thrive. And if not, then we're going to see a lot of kind of restless legs. We're going to see a lot of carpal tunnel. We're going to see a lot of sciatica. We're going to see a lot of those shooting nerve issues, but also you'll see it very present on the skin as well. So thoughts on that so far?
Fantastic. You're
Okay.
right on.
Yeah. And then should you ignore the primary body system, the sign that's on your ascendant, then we go to the sixth house of health and wellness, which is kind of the sixth house of symptomology. It's when the primary body system starts to become so overwhelmed that it pushes its dysfunction into other places. And it says, hold my bag. It says, I'm too overwhelmed. Please help me, signal to our lovely host that they are doing things that are inappropriate for our physical existence, right? And in the sixth house, we have Cancer for you. Cancer, the sign of the stomach. So we're really looking at secondary issues and secondary symptoms that are trying to weigh you down as being very much associated with symptoms like acid reflux, ulcers, upset stomach, but not into the lower belly, into the small intestine, large intestine, keeping it upper digestive specifically. So we're really looking at even just that really sour gut feeling, constantly belching, or feeling gas, bloating, or pain in the upper digestive system directly upon eating. Which we know that the nerves and the stomach are kind of connected, but a lot of people who have Aquarius rising don't understand that if you ignore the subtle, then the body starts to twist at kind of the digestive system in a more real and visceral way.
Thank you.
You have Uranus here anyway, and wherever we see Uranus or Uranus, it's the planet of unpredictability. And so the stomach has never really been fully settled for you. And so it'll just exacerbate should the nerves continue to get out of control. And it can be this game that your body plays with you in terms of like, is this actually my physical stomach? Is this my nerves? And where on the spectrum are we lying between true physicality, symptom-wise, and mental emotional dysfunction that's manifesting as symptoms. And really, astrology would argue both. And then should you continue to neglect the body, should you continue to say, I'm not going to hear the cries for help that are calling from within, then we move into the 12th house of hospitalization, which is the body sign that knocks you on your ass, that lends you in the urgent care, that puts you up in the hospital, that really produces what we would call the decumbiture, or the laying flat of the client. And here we see Capricorn, and Capricorn is the sign of the bones, the teeth, and the joints. So the skeletal system will promptly start to collapse, and not just collapse, but we also have Mars here. So collapse in an extremely inflammatory, almost rheumatoid arthritis-y type of way, where it's loud, it's dramatic, it's hot, it's fiery, it's very, very painful and stabby, and that being the flavor of joint dysfunction. It's not this dull, deep ache. It's a true red flag.
Thank you.
Talk to me a little bit about what you've been experiencing physically and what's been kind of on your mind in terms of how you have or haven't been able to handle it.
Well, let's just say that I've been diagnosed with venous reflux in my vascular system. The arteries are fine, but the veins are not able to have the strength to pump the blood back up into my organs, in my stomach, my heart, and my head. And the calves in particular have been very sensitive, and legs were swelling and turning purple from the knees down. That's been resolved with compression socks movement, myofascial release therapy, some internal work, and just consciously listening to my body and not hitting the override button. But that has actually, Sam, translated into some joint issues, especially on the left side. And I am experiencing, it's not really a rheumatoid generalized systemic autoimmune thing, but it's my left side has been talking with the female side of me and saying, pay attention here. you need to follow and move and take care of yourself like you take care of everyone else.
Mhm.
So, and I think you would find it very interesting that I had a bowel resection in 2018, which sort of started this whole ball game. And it has just progressed to this point because of really just putting Band-Aid after Band-Aid and continuing with my work schedule, which was lots of hours, and I love it, but lots of hours, and just sort of making myself invisible.
Mm.
And so my body gave me very, very loud messages in this past year.
Yeah.
So it all ties in.
Okay. Excellent.
And the stomach meridian on my cheeks, when things are starting to flare, my cheeks and the stomach meridian is beet red. And I know exactly, stomach meridian. So it's exactly as you described. Thank you.
What I find really interesting with this level of the discussion, and specifically about circulation, is we need to talk about the Pisces sun. You know, Pisces, and because you also have the watery moon, that Scorpio moon, that dynamic of having so much water in your key placements can be extremely tricky for emotional backlog. And one of the ways that we see that a lot in the body is lymphatic stagnation. And it doesn't matter how strong the muscles are. It doesn't matter how strong the veins are. If the fluid overpowers it, if the emotions overpower it, then, you know, it doesn't add up and you get swamped, literally.
And that's exactly what happened. I felt like I had been swamped, and that watery feeling, that heavy water feeling like you're carrying a water balloon around your body is what I started to experience with all of this.
Yeah. So one of the things that we'll see a lot with major water placements that are out of control, but specifically with Scorpio. Scorpio is a major perpetrator. Pisces will absorb other people's feelings, but it's kind of like a jellyfish. You know, it absorbs, but it just lets things pass through as well. The bottleneck tends to happen with Scorpio. Cancer, if they get resentful enough, but Scorpio specifically, because fixed water stagnates. And what a Scorpio moon will often do is it will say, I'll deal with it later. And it'll stick it in a drawer. And then it will forget that it's there. And then 2-3 months later, it will turn into a science experiment. And you're like, how did all this mold get in here? And it festered feelings that never got touched. So
exactly. And that's exactly, it's layer and ignoring it and moving on, putting it in a little compartment so I could function and just move forward because of not wanting to deal with it. And because it's holding me back from the agenda in my head of what I feel that I need to do.
Right.
Perfect.
That's a very Aquarian approach. You know, Aquarius as fixed air is the scientist. You know, there's a to-do list, and on that to-do list there are breakthroughs, and civilization depends on it. And that kind of light, airy feeling of inspiration depends on your ability to go through that fixed checklist of orders, rituals, and routines.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is in direct conflict with the wishy-washy, with the subtle, with the things that are more touchy-feely that your moon and your sun want you to focus on.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So let's, in addition to the metaphysical approach to that of kind of working through your feelings and respecting the emotional state, and maybe even, should you feel so called, setting up an altar to the moon in your space to kind of honor, respect, and channel your feelings more appropriately.
Yes.
Let's talk about some physical remedies. I know that you had mentioned movement. Do you feel like you're moving enough at this point?
I'm not moving enough at this point. I'm moving much more than I had been 2 months ago.
Okay.
And I feel the difference. I'm able to move without pain, and I'm able to stand on my legs again. I was unable to stand on my legs, and now I can. And so I am moving more, I'm doing more, and I'm not as fatigued from the blood pooling in my legs because of the compression socks. And because of the compression socks, I'm able to move more. Plus all the therapies I'm doing great work, great therapies with a great team.
Excellent. Side note for everybody watching, when we see Mars in the 12th, often, even though Mars is exalted, this is an excellent example of the literal interpretation of a planet. Mars, in addition to representing will and drive, when Mars is in the 12th, we see a lot of people having trouble literally standing up for themselves. And so that's part of both the physical and metaphysical metaphor that I think is just so encapsulated by Mars and Capricorn in the 12th. So great, great astrological example of that.
Great. Great.
So are there any suggestions that I can make that you feel would be valuable to you from a physical perspective, or do you feel like you have all of the remedies that you need? You just need to kind of do more of them.
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I really feel that any kind of physical suggestion that you may have would translate to the ethers, the metaphysical, and the energy around me to help create even more health, well-being, balance, and awareness of my body.
Okay. So let me just kind of ramble at you for a little bit about
Perfect.
how I do what I like to call draining the swamp from a metaphysical and physical perspective. So when we look at a backlog of fluid in the body, fluid is the element of emotion. So we know that there's going to be both the physical fluid and the metaphysical fluid that needs to be taken care of. Best way as a primary approach to get fluid moving in the body is with more fluid, movement, and balancing mineral content, specifically salts, because certain foods can be diuretic, or they can have too much or too little salinity, which can cause the muscles to backfire and not be as strong. So we want to feed the body appropriately from a nutritional standpoint so that the muscles get the nutrients that they need to work hard as pumps. But then we also want to make sure that fresh fluid is coming in, that we're hydrating appropriately, which is kind of counterintuitive. It's the idea of, I already have so much water, why do I need more? You know, one of the best ways to push fluid is with fluid, to stimulate the kidneys from that perspective. But then also how we pump fluid and lymphatically or cardiovascularly is with movement. Doesn't need to be aggressive movement. A lot of people think that they need to start running marathons, and that's not the case. It's regular, consistent movement. Lymph also doesn't like 30 minutes of concentrated movement. It likes little chunks of 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here throughout the day, so that we can, a good visual is dredge those waters out and pull them frequently, and not let the body settle into stagnation. So it's a little bit of a different protocol that allows physical movement to be taken in small doses so that it doesn't overwhelm, but also making sure that we're creating that fluid movement with other factors, not just movement, but also hydration. Because if we start moving, but the body is just circulating its own old water, that's going to be a problem.
Thank you.
So another aspect that we might want to consider is dietarily incorporating more heat. So that's going to be staying away from cold foods like salads, ice creams, sushis, anything raw, even smoothies. We want things warm. We want things hot. We even want spices to be increased. We want everything to be super flavorful, very much alive, and we want to focus on a lot of the warming spices like chilies, black peppers, cardamoms, curries, gingers, turmeric, anything that has that warming, spicy profile to it. We want more of those on a regular basis to help contract and warm up and evaporate that excess fluid.
That makes a lot of sense, Sam. And I have been craving spicy and hot food. I am totally turned off by anything cold, which is unusual for me.
Yeah.
I usually prefer cooling foods. So I can feel the difference in my physiology. If I have something spicy, I actually feel better. I'm holding less fluid, and my movement is so much easier from an inflammation point of view.
Right. And
Perfect, perfect.
this is what a lot of people don't understand about bodily energetics is at one point, right, you were overheating. And so your
Yes.
body was like, give me cold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I need to cool down. But then the dam broke, you know, and your energetics flipped and your body started to backlog and it started to get too damp, too cold, too wet.
Yes.
And that's when your body was like, okay, we need to switch this. We need to tell her to feed us warm, you know, not cold and wet. And so that's what we really love to see, is that suggestions that we make from an energetic remediation perspective are already present within the body's natural cravings.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other physical questions, comments, concerns, things you wanted to chat about there?
Fasting.
Mm.
I'm thinking about fasting.
I would disagree with that.
Okay, thank you.
When the body is in a state of supreme emotional overload, the last thing that we want to do is make the body feel like it's starving. Right? Which is going to take away from the self-care aspect of nourishment.
Thank you.
It would be different if you had too much earth, if you were dealing with like fatty deposits or things that were heavier in nature, but fluid doesn't really respond to starvation the way that like true excess would.
It makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would
every time I want to think about fasting, I hear this huge no in my body. But I was at the point several months ago that I was so desperate. I thought maybe I should just fast for, a month, which I've done in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. My body is still speaking, saying no, no.
And that's like, it's just so important to go back to basics with that and to listen to what the body is trying to tell you. Often in your pattern, when we see that first overheating and you're craving that cold, a lot of it is because you're burning up. And one of the things that we need to do is feed you, because fire, when it burns too hot, it burns out of its own fuel. So a lot of the times when we see people who are in this kind of burnout pattern and they're about to crash and they're about to go into the opposite direction of that fluid and that cold, what we really need to do is get them on a lot of blood building foods. So think like your chicken noodle soups, a lot of root vegetables, a lot of things that are black, like black beans, and even like roasted sesame seed paste, and things that are just going to be very nourishing and very healing to the liver, so that we get the body to not combust spontaneously.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit and shift gears regarding career. Yeah. So what I think is really interesting from an astrological discussion is that astrology divides career into 4 different, and really 5 different sections. So there's the 10th house of fame. There's the 8th house of entrepreneurship. There's the 6th house of the 9 to 5, the desk job. And then there's the 2nd house of finance, where we actually earn our money, which may be separate from your job, interestingly enough. And then what a lot of clients confuse is the difference between what you do for a living, what brings in a paycheck, and your life purpose. When people say, what should I do for work? They don't really mean work, they mean life purpose. And astrology differentiates between those two, because the archetype that you are supposed to embody personally and who you are growing into may be very separate from what you do for a living, and that is perfectly acceptable. Yeah. So let's throw out some basic interpretations, and then we'll discuss kind of what those mean in regards to what you're doing right now.
Perfect.
Okay. So Moon in Scorpio in the 10th house, the craving for validation is absolutely there. You don't want to be in the spotlight because Scorpio prefers to be very private and behind the scenes, but taking all of the credit from the people that you're involved in the play with is definitely part of the job description. So that emotional validation needs to be present in anything that you do. The ruler of your 8th house of entrepreneurship is in your 1st house of self, applying to your ascendant. So what that means is, because Mercury is connected via the 8th to the 1st, that you do have strong entrepreneurship urges, and that starting your own practice or starting your own business or being in work for yourself is a natural skill. It's something that fits your persona. It's something that you would do very well in a consulting and advising position, where you're basically just showing up and being like, I know what to do, and doing it. The 9 to 5, yeah, for sure. It's very easy, your chart from a work perspective. The 6th house of the 9 to 5 in work is a little bit tricky because, again, Uranus is here. So when it comes to scheduling things on a regular basis, there always seems to be this disruption in your schedule. The minute that you get comfortable with one schedule, it completely dishevels and it goes into this other mode of being. And this really comes back to the Virgo and the Mercury aspect of being adaptable and really meeting people that you would consult with on their terms at their times, maybe charging more because of that, but not thinking that your work or your practice is going to be this really easy 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. situation, because it's just not. Now, how you earn money is actually really interesting. We have the sun here in Pisces. Pisces on the 2nd house does tend to have issues holding on to money because it is mutable. Money can come in, you know, pretty easily, but it also leaves pretty easily. Because of that, we often want somebody looking over the finances. For you, it's going to be your spouse. The ruler of your 2nd house of finance is Jupiter in the 7th house of relationships. So we really want to make sure that you surround yourself with people who are better at managing finances than you. At its kind of most extreme definition, you earning an income from your spouse's business, their affairs, their investments, their inheritances, or them being the primary breadwinner is actually where a lot of your finances will come from in the end. So if you're trying to make a lot of your own money, if you're trying to kind of be the primary breadwinner, your chart actually speaks that against that a little bit, because you're naturally attracted to people who are financially better off than you are. So all of that being said, your North Node is in the 11th house of friendships, community involvement, philanthropic efforts, and the tribe. So although your work is really asking you to consult and be an independent practitioner, your life purpose is actually getting you to socialize, to expand, to work for the betterment of the community in which you serve, not necessarily on a one-on-one basis, but more donating your time, your efforts, your energies, your profits even to more philanthropic ventures, and not necessarily keeping or hoarding your wealth for yourself, but developing those currencies in terms of relationships that can really not only fulfill the pocketbook, but also fulfill the life. But that can be a very financially risky life purpose as well, because it doesn't necessarily pay the bills all the time. So talk to me about what you think about that and any feedback that you have or clarity that you would like to receive.
Okay, the feedback that I have is perfect, actually, in regards to having someone handle the finances, who is my spouse. She is incredibly grounded, black and white kind of person. And when I told her I was doing this today, and she was like, what about peeling the parsnips for dinner tomorrow? So it's that kind of thing. But she has been able to take the finances and the money I've made and with my practice. I've been in practice for 23 years as an entrepreneur, massage therapist, and do homeopathic stuff, just a bunch of lots of different modalities I have a passion for. And she takes that and channels it into paying the bills and creating this nest egg for us that has just been incredible for me financially. The woo-woo in my head and my ability to someone will need something and I'll just take care of it anonymously, usually, that kind of thing. If I had the wherewithal, I probably wouldn't have half of what we have. So that all being said, I have been an entrepreneur for 23 years, and I work really hard at keeping myself in the lines. And my tribe, my community is very strong. I've been seeing most of the same people for at least 10 or 15 years, and everyone's schedules for the year. And so the entire year, by this time of year, my book is full for the next year. And I've been doing that for 10 years. But that's how I've used that organizational part of my brain to create success and structure for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about scheduling. And so because of the craziness of the scheduling and how things usually fly for me, that's why I set it in stone, because it drove me bonkers. So I've sort of overcome that. Does it morph in between? A little bit, but I really have created a structure for myself that I can work within and not be distracted by shiny objects. So, so that really makes a lot of sense. Because of the health issue and because of being in business 23 years and feeling my body sort of winding down, looking at life where I want to spend time with my partner, my grandkids, I want to travel, I want to hang out with my tribe and have, go for a long walk in the woods, which I've never done in 23 years, hardly, because of working crazy hours, long hours till 8:30 every night or whatever. So I'm looking at all of that now. And I'm relating that to what do I have? I have a home. We have all this stuff and responsibility, and I am at the point where I'm looking at solo women van dwellers websites, where I would love to just set up a little van or a mobile thing and travel around the country and see my friends and do massage and take a class and go in the ocean on every coast. So that is where I am. I really miss my work. I haven't worked since March of 2020, and I miss it so much. And I miss that tribe. I miss the camaraderie. I still have connection to community, and that has been wonderful. This whole sort of hibernation thing has served me well, yet I am ready to go back on different terms. And I'm not sure what that looks like. I really am feeling more of an energetic rather than a physical practice. I know that I have been a very supportive, not consultant, but I'm really good at helping folks with a lot of compassionate guidance and truth. And my knowing, my psychic ability, my intuition is at an all-time high. So I see it morphing into something, but I'm not quite sure. And I need to make a living at it because I am the sole breadwinner. And so that's where it stands right now, Sam. And so I'm at this crossroads, and whatever I recreate once I work through my physicality and the emotional components of where I've landed in this water, the soup, and we'll see. So I'm interested in what you have to offer for some guidance.
So it is really interesting that you are the sole breadwinner in the relationship from the style of your chart. So let's maybe poke at that just a little bit, because I think that that may be where some of the emotional backlog or energetic backlog from a star's perspective is coming from. So it may be a good idea to either bring your partner more into the business to where you're asking their opinion more often, they're handling your marketing, or you're working with them to earn more money in a different way, like them getting a side job just to cover some additional expenses, to have more to save away. It doesn't need to be a big thing, but finding a way to leverage that second house, seventh house connection where your partner is a little bit more financially responsible instead of just managing the finances, is in some way, shape, or form contributing to the finances, because that's a huge part of the chart that I think maybe isn't being fulfilled in terms of just the work aspect. Because if it's all on your shoulders, then again, it from a second connection perspective, we need to bring in that relationship to figure out how they can be of assistance as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, would that include growing the money? Would that be part of her? Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't, like, as an example, you don't need to teach your partner how to be a massage therapist and have them work on clients. Like, it can be many other ways, but the idea of that, if you're looking to grow your wealth, your chart says do it with your partner. And if they're just managing the money, then maybe we need to figure out, or they need to figure out specifically how to leverage that money more intelligently, or find a way to, for them specifically, to activate your financial house, because you can't really touch it as much.
Okay, great, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now, that being said, really interesting transit coming up at the end of December, which will last until the beginning of May. Jupiter will be moving into Pisces. Jupiter is the Lord of expansion. Jupiter is in your second house of finance. Will be moving there at December 29th, 28th, 29th. And so the first quarter of this year is going to be flooded with financial opportunity. And so I think that'll take a lot of the pressure off, but it may be a really constructive time for you to figure out this whole money situation and how your partner contributes to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Another thing to kind of consider, you know, coming from a bodywork perspective as well, is when we get so booked with clients and we get kind of trapped by our book. A lot of times we're looking to swing in the opposite direction and be like, I crave freedom and I must, you know, only do 1 or 2 clients a week because I must, you know, caravan over the United States and immediately leave all of my roots behind. And, you know, it can be such a drastic shift. So I would maybe challenge you with an experiment of taking 1 day off a week. And start there and see how much that fills your cup before you start to uproot the foundation.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Any other kind of questions, comments, concerns in regards to the work department?
I have been counseled by friends that doing videos for inspirational videos and Jin Shinjitsu videos, things like that, would be a way for me to make a living. I'm not really feeling that, but it keeps coming up over and over, that and teaching. And teaching is something that I do in my practice. It's a very strong aspect of my practice. But for me to think about doing that feels overwhelming. It feels like that box that I really don't want to be stuck in.
It's there's almost a juxtaposition in your chart because, again, the ruler of the 8th house of business is Mercury, who's naturally super communicative and is in your 1st house. We would take that as an excellent teaching archetype to have in your back pocket. In your actual 3rd house of writing and teaching and speaking, we have Venus, who's in Aries, which is a little bit over competitive. She's in her detriment. She doesn't like to be in Aries as much. She's kind of a prove it to me type of energy, which can get frictionless if you try to teach. You're like, I'm either better than everyone else or everyone else is better than me. There is no in between, and that can cause friction to the spirit. But Mars is ruling that from Capricorn in the 12th, which can also be a tricky spot because the 12th is the place of hidden enemies, but it is also the place of karmic healing. So let me summarize it by saying this: you've got the tools. Like, you can do it. There's nothing astrologically that's stopping you from doing that. But the way that you tap into the greatest ease of the teaching experience is you have to go all the way down to the bottom of the underworld, and you have to tap the root of healing. You cannot go through the semantics of it. You cannot go through the bullshit superficial levels. You cannot walk people through the fuzzy bunny rabbit stuff. You have to go down to where it hurts. You must go down to the very, very depths of that soul level healing experience and teach from there. And that's not for everybody. It is definitely more niche. It is definitely more difficult. It is super valuable, but it is also a harder sell. So that's kind of the feedback that I would give. Possible? Totally. Not in the traditional way. You have to go for blood. Like, you have to go for the jugular with these videos. Otherwise, Mars isn't going to support you.
That's exactly what I'm feeling, Sam. And it's almost that I have to be ruthless, and raw and honest. And in Maya Fascia release, there's something called the slap technique. Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
but for the purpose of everybody else, like, walk us through.
For the purpose of everybody else, what the slap technique is: when someone's doing body work on you, and